Hey everybody, Hake here, and in this video we are going to go over Proxmox Backup Server. We are going to be setting this up so that all of the VMs and containers on my 3-node cluster are backed up. Not only backed up though, but we're going to be setting up garbage collection, verifying the backups, all sorts of things that we need to make sure we have a robust setup and we're being efficient with it with the Proxmox Backup Server deduplication. So we have a guide here. This guide will be in the description. This is Obsidian that I'm using for my notes. I'm going to copy and paste this into Substack so that it's available, and I'll put it link in the description. On the right-hand side, I have my SSH manager Termius up, and I have SSH'd into Laconia, which is my Proxmox backup server. And then I also have a tab for Cirrus, which is my node 0 for my cluster here. I'm just going to clear that out. That was some testing that I did earlier. This is actually the second time this morning I'm doing this because I reinstalled Proxmox Backup Server for this guide specifically. So we are starting fresh. I've done nothing on this system. And the first thing we're going to do is just set Swappiness to 10. It's kind of like a general guideline that people do. It keeps more things in RAM for better performance. I'll be honest, I don't understand the super details of how it works, but I can kind of infer based on the name that we're going to keep more things in RAM than our swap file. So let's go ahead and just run that. That's all we need to do. I'm going to disable IPv6. If you are using it, you can keep it. So I'm just going to run these things here. And then we're going to just apply those settings with sysctl, and it'll print out kind of those changes that we have made. Okay, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes, and there's a few things that I want to talk about here. So for my system, I'm actually using just a temporary Proxmox backup server. It's got way too much like resources to dedicate to a PBS. Really, like I'm going to have a smaller, less resources mini PC that is going to be my Proxmox backup server. But ideally, you have the OS drive, like something that's like 128 gigabytes, and then you have your backup drive, and ideally those are going to be SSDs. Ideally, they're going to be an NVMe drive with like pretty good speed. But you can also do it on just one drive, like just an OS drive, but it should be like 512 megabytes. The minimum that I have here is that you're going to want like 256 gigabytes. So we're going to basically need to be able to back up your containers and VMs. And if you have a lot of them, that could take up a lot of storage. The deduplication is great, but just keep in mind, like you're going to be keeping multiple copies of your containers and VMs and all sorts of things. So more space is better. I'm actually using so my main drive is 500 gigabytes, too big. But my secondary drive, which I'm going to move over to the less resource provided mini PC, is 4 terabytes, and that's because I plan to run quite a bit of containers. I'm going to be running a few VMs, but I just want to have plenty of storage, so I have lots of backups. And then it won't be in this video, but I'll do a follow-up video where we go over, and it's really simple actually. I thought about including it in here, but I just wanted to keep it pretty concise, where we back up to like a USB hard drive or something, and also like the NAS as well. So there's going to be a few different backups. Backups are like one of the most important things that you could possibly have. So yes, two options. Option one, a single disk. Let me just put this in view mode here. A single disk system or a dual disk system. And I have some pros and cons of each. Obviously, the dual disk system is going to be better. That is what I'm using. And the first thing we're going to do, whether you have, the first thing if you have single disk setup, what you're going to want to do is just use a directory basically within. There's other guides. You might like partition a section of your single disk drive off for your backups. I say just create a directory. So you'll just do, make directory -p and then data store, and then you're going to be using that as your data store. For dual disk, the first thing you're going to want to do is identify your actual backup disk. So you can just paste this lsblk, and I'm going to be wiping this, but I know right off the bat that this is my backup disk because it's 4 terabytes, and I know that my main disk is 500. But let's say your backup is 500 as well. Another obvious tip-off that this is going to be your OS drive is the fact that you have your boot mount here. and you have your root mount here in this LVM, and you can see PBS root. NVMe 1N1 is going to be my OS drive. It's like super obvious. So you want to be positive though, because we're going to be wiping the disk, and it probably wouldn't let you wipe it anyways if it was your OS disk because it's in use. But this one is not mounted to anything, so we can go ahead and wipe everything with it. But that is going to be the first thing you're going to want to do. Just a little bit extra white space here that I don't like. And we're going to be using ext4. There's like ZFS. There's other ways you can do this, but I'm a simple guy. I just have a single 4 terabyte NVMe that I want to use for backups. So we're just going to be using ext4 for our file system. And then usually I like to provide the real commands that I'm running in here, but just because I don't want you to copy and paste and accidentally wipe a disk that isn't the right one, I'm not going to actually put my devices in here. So you'll see me like copy and paste it, but I'm actually going to update it with my real device. So the first thing we are going to want to do is wipe this disk. So we can just paste that in here. And then, like I said, I'm just going to be updating this to NVMe 0N1. And we can see it has now been wiped. And if I do like lsblk, we can see that partition is gone. It's just a blank drive here. And then we can set up fdisk, or we can use fdisk to create our partition. So this is basically just adding that partition back to the drive. And we'll do, it's easier just to type it in, fdisk dev, NVMe 0N1 is going to be the device. And I will just press G for create new GPT partition table, N for new partition, and I'm just going to select the default. So I'll hit enter for partition 1, enter for first sector and last sector, and that's going to use the entire drive at this point. Yes, it's basically saying that I had like an ext4 partition on here before. When you wipe it, it doesn't really wipe everything. But yes, we do want to remove that. So if you do get prompted, just make sure you select yes there. And then we can do W to write those changes. So now if we do lsblk, we can see now we have a partition 1, so P1. And that's where we're going to have all of our backups. So I'm going to use the whole drive. And if you want to, like, I just use lsblk, but you could do lsblk grep NVMe 0N1, and obviously you're just going to get that part of it. Okay, this command's a little fancy. What we're going to be doing is making our file system on the partition that we just created. It's going to be ext4. M0 means we're not reserving any space. So if you're typically installing something like an operating system, you want some reserved space because if you were to fill it up, your whole system would crash. Typically with the reserve space, it should still work. And then we're going to do large file because it's optimized for fewer larger files, which is kind of what like PBS does with the chunks. So it's kind of optimized for that. And then lazy itable init is 0, so we're turning that off. We're going to initialize it now for better performance, and then we're just specifying our device. So, and we should actually let me double check. I'm pretty sure we need the device and the partition. So let's just Control C, Control V, and we're going to do NVMe 0N1P1 or partition 1. Let me just update that. Your device, and then edit mode here, your partition. So when I say your partition, the reason why I don't just put like P1 is because I'm pretty sure for like SDAs, for like an SSD that runs on SATA, they just use like SDA1, SDA2 for the partition. I don't think it's like P1 or anything like that. But anyways, we're good. So if we do lsblk, no, df-h, that's only going to be mounted stuff. So yeah, we'll see it in a second here. Let me just clear that out. We're going to create that same data store directory like we did for if you only have a single drive, but this is actually going to be where we're mounting our second drive. So we'll do this mount command, and we're basically saying mount that device and partition that we just created, NVMe 0 and 1 P1 to the data store. And now if we do df-h, we can see it's been mounted. And the best part about this is we're using basically our entire disk here. So 3.8 is the size, 3.8 is available. If you didn't do that -m when we made our file system, this would be like 3.6 available. So we're saving quite a bit of space by doing that. Okay, but this now, if we were to reboot, it wouldn't mount automatically. So we need to create an entry in our fstab. So to do that, we want to get our UUID. So we'll just do NVMe 0 and 1 P1, and that is our UUID. And then we're going to paste this command, which adds it to our fstab. So we need to go back here, and where it says UUID here, we just copy this. If you're using Terminus, it's Control-Shift-C, and then we'll do Control-Shift-V, and then we are good to go. So we can just press Enter, and if we cat out our etc, we can see now we have this entry here. It's saying mount the partition with this UUID at this location. It is an ext4 file system. Use the default settings with no A time and 0.2. All right, we're just gonna prove that this works. Make sure I didn't mess anything up. So we can unmount the data store, and if we do df-h, we can see it's not mounted anymore. And then if we want to mount using fstab, we can do mount-a. I usually do AV, which is like verbose, and you can see it tells you like these are already mounted, and then we can see that this one was successfully mounted, and if we do df-h, we can see that it is mounted again. All right, now we need to actually make that a data store. And to do that, we can use the Proxmox Backup Manager, and we can say we're going to do a data store create, and we're going to call it main, and it's going to be at this mount point. So let's go ahead and enter that, and you can see it's creating the chunks for the data store. And if we just very quickly check out our browser, we can see under data stores, we now have a main, and that's what we called it, main. And we can see if we go to summary that it is 4 terabytes, and that's the size of my NVMe. So we are looking good. Let me now bring everything back. Doop, doop. And we can move on. So there's a lot of things that run based on time, and the timing kind of matters. So this is what I'm using for my system. You may want to change it for your system, but the idea is that at 2130, the pruning happens. So it's freeing up space. It's basically removing anything that no longer needs to be there, because I'm only keeping so many copies of my backups. And then 2200, the actual backup works. Then I'm going to do the verification. So after the backup's complete, which, 3 hours should be plenty for the amount that I have. And then on Sundays, we're going to do garbage collection. So that's kind of like how I have it set up. So like the timing kind of makes sense where it does it in a certain order, because these things are going to be happening daily, because I do want daily backups for all of my stuff. And then for retention, we're keeping the 3 most recent. We're keeping 7 daily, 4 weekly, and 2 monthly backups. So there's a lot of copies here basically, but because of like deduplication and stuff, it doesn't take up that much space. This is just what I recommend. I'm not going to keep any yearly backups because it's rare that I need to like restore something a whole year ago, but I might need to restore something that maybe is a month ago or something. So how do we set this all up? Well, we can do almost all of it through the in fact, we can do all of it through the CLI. That's kind of what I recommend. So we can see for our first one, we're setting up our prune job. And our prune job, remember, runs at 2130. So we put 2130 here for the schedule. If you just put 2130, it knows that it's going to be daily. And of course, we're calling it daily prune. And it's going to be doing the main data store. And we can see this matches. Keep last 3, 7 daily, 4 weekly, 2 monthly. So we should be able to now just copy this, paste this in here. And And we can see prune job created. Now, we're just going to do this for each thing we do, just so it's very obvious what we're doing. We bring up our browser and we go to prune jobs. We can see there's now our daily prune, and it's scheduled to go at 21:30, 3 last, 7 daily, 4 weekly, 2 monthly, and the next run is scheduled for tonight at 21:30. Okay, let's bring ourselves back. Where's it? There we go. And then the next thing we want to do. Okay, so this kind of explains it a little bit more because I know I've just been saying like keep daily 7, and that's not like, it's kind of confusing, but keep 1 per day for a week. So we're going to have like, from today's date, I'm going to have 7 backups, 1 created per day. And that's the most common, like you're going to want to get some of the most recent ones, and then keep weekly for a month. So I'm going to have the last 7 days, but then I'm also 2 weeks ago, I'm going to have 1, 3 weeks ago, I'm going to have 1, 4 weeks ago, I'm going to have 1. So if I need to go back further, I can. And then 2 monthly backups. So I'll have 2 backups for each month, and then I don't need any yearly backups. And this, you could even probably skip the monthly ones, honestly, unless like you want to be really, really safe. So let's move on to garbage collection. So basically, we want it to be able to reclaim the space weekly. So we're going to run that Sunday at 2 a.m. So we'll just copy that command, paste it in here. And if we go to our browser, we can see it already pops up here. Sunday at 2 o'clock. Next run is going to be not till Sunday, 11:09 at 2 o'clock. And it hasn't run yet, so there's no real data here for us yet. But once it starts running, we'll definitely see it. Let's bring back everything. Okay, now we need to do verification. And verification basically just makes sure that the integrity of our backups are good. So we want to run that daily after we do the backups. So we'll copy that, go back in here, we'll paste it, and everything looks good. So what this does, some of these commands are pretty interesting. So we're still back on our main data store. We're doing this daily at 100. So skip recently verified backups, but then after 30 days, re-verify older backups because maybe corruption happened. They were verified okay, but then 30 days later, something happened with the disk, and now the verification fails or something like that. So any backup that's like less than 30 days old, it only gets verified once. And then every 30 days after that, it gets verified again. Okay, we can move on to, actually, we should check our verification in the browser. So let's bring up the browser, and if we go to verify jobs, we see re-verify after 30 days, we're running at 0-100, and our next backup is tonight at 0-100, and we should skip verified. Okay, let's get ourselves back. And we need to create a user for backups. So what we're going to do is we're just copy this command, and we're going to say my password. So we're creating a user. It's going to be called backup at PBS, and we're setting the password as my password. And we'll check in a second on the browser what this looks like, but we also need to, we're going to be using an API token, which is a little bit better. You don't have to pass your password through this configuration. You can just pass the API token. It's easier to cancel them instead of resetting your password. So we're going to also create an API token for backup at PBS. And you're going to want to keep this. So I'm going to copy that with Control-Shift-C, and I'm going to store it in a notepad that you can't see. All right. And we also need to set our access control list. So you need to set it for the API token, though. So what we're going to do is we're going to do ACL update for our data store main. We're going to provide it the data store backup role, which gives it the correct permissions to do data store backups. Okay, and I think now is probably a good time we can check what it looks like on the browser. So if we go to access control, we now have this backup user in the PBS realm. It's enabled, never expires. And if we go to API tokens, we can see we have this API token listed here. And then under permissions, we can see for our API token, it has the Datastore backup role. So we have everything we need from a user management perspective. And this is going to be the user on our Proxmox hosts that we use to do the backups. Speaking of that, now is a good time for us to connect Cirrus to Laconia so we can actually set up our backups. But we need one more piece of information, which is the fingerprint. So still on the PBS server, we'll paste that in and we will get this fingerprint here. I'm just going to copy this and put it with my API key. And we are going to now go to our PVE host. And we're going to add a backup. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm actually going to real quick paste it over in my notepad and paste in the API key and the fingerprint because it's just easier to do off screen. And then I'll copy it all and then we'll paste it in here. All right, so what are we doing here? Setting the server would be what our Proxmox Backup Server IP address is. So mine's 10.13. Username is going to be that backup at PBS, but exclamation point API token because we're going to be using API token for authentication. Here's our API token listed for password. The data store is going to be main, and that's the data store that we created. And then the fingerprint for our Proxmox Backup Server. Okay, so one fact that I did not know about was that it appears that for an API token, the user also needs to have permissions to the path. As soon as I added the backup at PBS and I went to API token and I see show permissions, I see that it does have access to the data store main, whereas before it didn't have that. And same with user management. Of course, now if I show permissions, I have access to the data store main. So it looks like you'll have to go, I'll add the command for it to basically add the permissions for both the API and the user. So one pro tip for that. Okay, we can continue on though. Let's jump back to our instructions here. And the next thing we're going to want to do is, so I have a 3-node cluster, as you probably saw a second ago. Where did Terminus go? There we go. I have a 3-node cluster, and I only needed to run this command. So now it works because we have the correct permissions. I only need to run it on one of my 3 nodes. So this is being done at the data center level. And let's also just set up our backup here. So we're actually going to set up our backup, which is going to happen at 2200 every single day. We're going to use PBS backup, which is what we created up here. And we're going to do a snapshot mode. We're going to enable it for all. So every single VM that I have and container. So, and then we're going to enable it. So let's just copy that and run that. And there we go. So now we have basically everything set up and we can actually even run it now to test it. So let's go back to our browser and it's not going to show up anything on here. Nothing really changed here. We still don't have any backups here. So if we go to content, we just have our root namespace. But if we go into Cirrus and we open it up, we now see there is a PBS backup here. And if we go to our data center and we go to backup, we can see that there is now a job that's going to run at 2200. Now, if we click the job and click run now and click yes, it's going to run the job immediately. And it should be pretty quick because I only have 2 VMs here. So we can see just momentarily the config is locked for the backup. And we should have everything done. I mean, if you have a lot of containers, a lot of VMs, it's going to take a lot longer, but we can see that it was completed just now. So how we can confirm that? First, we can go to PBS backups and we can see backups, and we see there's the container 100 and 101. So both of them have been backed up. Now you can see the verify state is nothing here because we haven't actually verified anything yet on Proxmox Backup Server. Now, if we go to even any of these, basically, it's going to be the same. So since we added it at the data center level, it all works the same, and it would do every single virtual machine for all three of these clusters. But if we go back here and we do a reload, we can see now they're over here as well. So they've been reflected in our store here, and we can see when the backup was. Now we can click on them, or we can actually just do verify all or prune all or do some commands here, but let's just make sure our job works. So we're going to click the job and do run now, and it's going to do the verify job. Now if we go back to our content and we reload, we can see now verify is good. And if we go back here and we just do a refresh, it's pulling in the state from our Proxmox Backup Server, and the verify state is okay. So now it's basically automated. I can add new VMs, I can add new containers, and those are going to get added to the backups, and everything is kind of handled automatically. Now, one thing I'm going to do a dedicated video for, and it's actually pretty straightforward, is we're going to add some external storage for our data store. So I want to sync the backups periodically to a USB drive, but also to my NAS. So there's going to be a separate video so that I have backups in 3 locations. My Proxmox Backup Server, if that goes down, I still have backups on my USB drive. If I lose that, I still have it on my NAS, which the NAS is technically on Proxmox, so there's a little bit of a failure there, potential failure point, but it's just a good idea to do it as many places as makes possible. Backups, again, are like super important to have, super helpful. And I'm also going to be eventually running like high availability, so that helps with some things as well. But really, it'd be nice. I'll probably do another video on like S3 to send some backups to S3 as well, so an off-site storage, because everything is on-site right now. So the 3-2-1 rule, I'm going to definitely should have something off-site in case tornado or something takes out my house. So that's going to be it for this video. I know we covered a lot. I know this is actually pretty basic as far as backups go. Proxmox Backup Server is really versatile. So I have a little note here, like we are just doing blindly all of the containers and all the VMs and everything, but you can actually set it at the node level. Like let's say you have one node that has like really important stuff that you want to back up more frequently. You have another one where you just want to back it up every month. You can change it so like certain nodes back up in different ways, and you can set namespaces for each of those nodes, so everything gets put under the namespace for those nodes. It's pretty neat, and I might end up doing it that way, even though for the most part everything's going to be backed up the same. I just like the separation of like responsibilities there, where I can set up namespaces. Adds a little bit more complexity. Maybe I'll do another video where we're doing like namespaces and like per node backups, but you can also even do per container backups basically. So within your node, you can set certain containers to back up at different times. You can get really complex with it. It starts to get a little much with like the prune jobs and the garbage collection and verify jobs and the sync jobs. So I have the space, I have the network bandwidth to just do everything every day. I don't need anything more than that. So really it's going to kind of depend on like the criticality of your Homelab and how crazy you want to go with it. Maybe it's just a learning experience. But for me, I'll probably just keep it keep it simple is the best way to do it. I know everything's getting backed up every single day. I know everything's running when it should at good times for me. So don't make it too complicated by trying to find perfection. Sometimes 80% good is as good as it needs to be. So that'll be it for this video. Hopefully it was helpful. There's going to be lots more videos coming, so subscribe, like this video, it really helps. I'm going to have some affiliate links in the description if you're feeling like you want to help out, and it's a free way. You click the links, and if you purchase something off Amazon, I get a small commission for that. It helps the channel, but totally up to you, and I'll see you in the next video.